and welcome back to the AusCannaPodcast, where we explore cannabis through the stories of patients, scientific insights, and the voices shaping this innovative space right here in Australia. I'm your host, Christina McMullen, and today I'm sitting down with Kyla de Clifford, freshly back from my very first Nimbin MardiGrass. Kyla is the founder of CannaCurious and Ruby Mary Botanicals. But more than that, she's deeply invested in creating spaces for honest conversations about cannabis in Australia. After spending time together in Nimbin during Mardi Gras, what stood out most to me was not just the work itself, but the intention behind it. Cannabis education isn't only about products and prescriptions. It's about making people feel comfortable enough to ask questions in the first place. Kyla understands that. Her work sits at an important intersection of curiosity, wellness, advocacy, and community. During the women's morning tea she organized at Mardi Gras, you could genuinely feel how hungry people were for spaces that felt safe, grounded, and free from judgment. So today, we're talking about all of that: community, cannabis culture, patient realities, education, and what happens when curiosity becomes a doorway into bigger conversations. Before we do all of that, a friendly reminder to keep your rapid fire questions coming. You can send them through to AusCannaReviews@gmail.com. Just make sure to include your mailing address, because if your question gets picked for the show, you'll receive a little goodie bag from me as a thank you. I've genuinely loved seeing what y'all come up with, because some of the best moments on this podcast have started with listener questions. All right, let's kick things off with the not so rapid fire segment. All right, rapid fire questions. Let's go. What's your comfort food after a long week?
This is supposed to be rapid fire. Oh my gosh, hot chips.
What's one thing you wish women spoke more openly about?
Dry vaginas.
Biggest lesson adulthood has taught you?
Ask questions. Ask more questions. Be curious.
Oh, I love that one. What's something younger you would be proud of right now?
Younger me would be proud of how many times I keep getting back up when I get knocked down.
I love it. It's like the, what is it? The Chumbawamba song?
Whatever it is.
I get knocked down, but I get up again. Yeah. You never gonna kiss my neck.
That's my theme song.
I love it. What's more important in cannabis, education or access?
Oh, that's tough. I'd say access. Because if you have access, you will learn and you will talk to the people around you.
Ooh, look at you ticking both boxes.
Because I do love education, but so it felt awful not to answer it that way.
I love it, though. You managed to circle it right back. What's one thing the legal industry could learn from legacy culture?
Oh, that's an excellent question. What could they learn? To be curious and to be kind and to look at the patient first.
Lights out. I like that a lot, actually. What's your perfect Nimbin morning look like?
My perfect Nimbin morning looks like getting up and using the bush toilet. And then sitting out on the balcony whilst having a joint and a cup of coffee and slowly making my way into town to the Bush Theatre where all the cool people were. That's my perfect Nimbin morning.
I love it. I love it. I have a listener submitted question, and this is from Valerie in Gladstone, Queensland. And she wants to know, What's your biggest green flag in the cannabis industry?
The biggest green flag. Whew. Education. Education and harm reduction. When I see that there is really good education for patients on anything really, but mostly different cannabinoids, looking at minor cannabinoids, which is harm reduction in itself. And harm reduction, teaching people how to take their medicine intentionally. And I know it's a very different way to look at it, but the plant can't be shoved into a medicinal box like other pharmaceuticals can.
I like that a lot. What's one thing you hope people feel after spending time with you?
Seen. I hope they feel seen.
Oh, okay, well, that's beautiful. It is.
Like, oh my gosh, she's got a heart in there.
No, that's beautiful though. Like, because a lot of just want to be seen.
Makes me so happy that, like, when someone comes to me and says that they feel seen or that they've been given hope, like, what, I think I've said this to you across the years. If I could just help one person, just one person, then I'm happy. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I can help many people.
No, I love it. Like I said, that's beautiful. Last question. What's one small moment from this year's MardiGrass that stayed with you?
When Michael Boulderstone asked me to come up and end Mardi Gras with him, and I stood on stage with him and Mel, and it was actually pretty surreal. The whole thing was amazing, but that'll stay with me forever.
I bet that was a very powerful moment, girl.
He'd asked me a couple of times, but I just thought, people just get asked. But then he came and found me, and then he made sure I followed him. And then, I ended up marching in the rally with him, which was super cool. And from my perspective, it's mind-blowingly amazing. I was filled with absolute joy in that moment.
I think it's an indication of how far you've come now.
Yeah, isn't it right?
Yeah.
You think while you're in it, like, why am I doing this? This is, never going to happen. And as you and I know, we pay our own ways. We pay for things to try and get the message out to people because we love this plant so much and what it can do. So to be recognized in that little moment was just, pretty mind-blowing for me.
I love it. Okay. Thank you so much for playing rapid fire questions with me. Before we get into your work specifically, I do want to talk about Nimbin because this was actually my very first MardiGrass to go to, whereas you've been to multiple.
Yes.
I guess I want to first start with, how did this year compare to previous years for you?
This year was the best. And I think that the energy at MardiGrass, sometimes at MardiGrass, there can be a tension. There can be big, like a tension there. And particularly because I'm not sure if you saw, unfortunately, the police like to show their presence. And, there was one point there where I was dancing outside the Apothecary to 90s music, and the police, like, they marched down in twos. Like, there was 10 or 12 of them just marching along like some military operation, and that can sometimes be felt by the people, but I didn't notice it this time. Like, everyone was really happy. There was a lot of light. There was a lot of love. And look, I'm probably biased because I got to spend time with all the people I love as well, which I haven't had that many people in one spot before. And it was just so beautiful. Like, honestly, it will always be my favorite MardiGrass, particularly because it was your first. I think there were a couple of firsts. It's absolutely amazing.
Let's talk about the woman's morning tea. This is something that I know you've wanted to create for years. What finally made this year the year you decided, okay, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen? Okay,
this is a really interesting way I did it. I asked the question.
I love it. So
I feel like it was manifestation. Like, when I've been before, I spend a lot of time at Nimbin itself because I find it a great way to, reset back when I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed by everything. I like to go back there to remember where we came from. And so I'd been thinking about it at MardiGrass, I'm like, I wonder why there isn't a morning tea. I wonder why we don't have it. So this year I asked the question, and I'm not going to lie, it was the work of a man who gave it an extra nudge and created that space for us. So I'm just grateful that Michael saw it in a second. He's like, absolutely yes. And I'm thinking, why didn't I ask that question? So there's a red hot tip for the listener. Ask questions. You do not know what you're going to receive if you ask the question. And then, if I had gotten a no, I would have tried again next year. But it was the right time, I think. I think the universe was like, okay, now is the time. You ready?
Again, this was my first MardiGrass, so I can't compare it to previous years. But I do feel like I don't want to be like it was the highlight of my weekend, but it really was, in the sense that it was this beautiful space where all these women got together, and I wanted to point out something. You gave this beautiful speech at the beginning about legacy and history and how we got here. But one of the best things about it is you talked about the buddy system and buddying up with somebody. On some level, it sounded very cliche, but at the same time, I was like, oh, thank God she did that. Because I did. I got a buddy. I buddied up. I asked some questions of some of the other girls that had been there had gone to a couple of the festivals. And I found out where the good bathroom was.
Right. I was just going to say, if you want to know where the good bathrooms are, where you can know that you'll always have a clean place to whiz, you speak to somebody who's been to MardiGrass before, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to know what's on, because it's actually, there's a lot that goes on. I remember being with someone and they were looking at photos going, how did I miss this? Was this even going on? So much goes on. There's so many subcultures and sub events running through the whole of MardiGrass. And I think the first time I went, I did miss out on a lot because I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm straight up. I'll most definitely be there next year for sure.
Me too.
Absolutely. But you're so right. There was so much going on that I was like, oh man, I missed out on so much. I got to go to a couple of the talks. I got to see at Northern Rivers Hemp, they did the Hempcrete wall, which was, again, Hempcrete. How amazing was that, to be honest? It was so neat to see a wall and you're like, obviously, I feel like we should be making more out of Hempcrete. It seems so obvious. And yet at the same time, you're like, people don't know.
Yeah, it still fascinates me because I started in hemp and I've actually been along and helped build hemp houses, and I have been inside hemp houses. The acoustics and the temperature inside a hemp house is just, it's something, you feel it inside your body. It's absolutely bizarre. And also, we used to get blowtorches and try and burn it, and you can't burn it. So imagine for bushfire areas, particularly in Australia or even California, I'd be like, if I had the money, I would be building a house out of hemp. And you could actually, for all intents and purposes, you could grow your own hemp, which would take about 90 days, process it and build your own house with it. 90 days.
Yeah, it does make you, after having conversations with Crystal there at Northern Rivers, just you're talking to her and you're just like, there's so much potential out there. There's so much that we could be doing with this plant. It's just, on some level, you got to ask yourself, why aren't we having these conversations? Why isn't this something we're talking about more?
It has grown a lot. In 7 years, I have seen pretty much extraordinary change, particularly in that space, because when I was around doing it, there was probably maybe 2 or 3 houses that had been done with hemp at the time. But now there are some big companies that have come in. There are some big Australian companies, but it's not spoken about as a normal building material, which to me it should be. It's not expensive to buy or to create, and it's not like mud brick used to be. If anyone remembers mud brick houses, but it has that feeling. There's a feeling of feeling held when you walk into that space. That's how hemp feels.
It's interesting that you said mud brick, because that's kind of I guess what I thought it was going to be, like as a kid when you're like slapping on the mud and you're building stuff like but it's not. It's so much cleaner, to be honest.
Yeah.
Very clean.
And the temperature, like, to be able to keep something cool in summer and warm in winter, like it's an incredible material.
Yeah.
And that we have female farmers like Crystal, and there's also Courtney from Narba Farms, who, I think they're second generation hemp farmers, which blows my mind. And I met some third generation farmers when I was in Nimbin. And, this has been happening long before we all sort of, started talking about the plant.
Did you notice any shift in the kinds of conversations you were having with people while you were there?
I think that I was still a little bit shocked, I guess, after. So I was on a panel and we talked a little bit about hormones. It was called High on Hormones. And when coming out of that and having women come up to me and going, thank you for speaking the truth. Thank you for being honest. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? It's just, isn't that normal? So, yeah, it was interesting to hear though that the surprise in their voices, or that, I've had that feedback. So storytelling is really important. Storytelling around the plant to me is like one of the most important things, and that's how we learn. And so being at Nimbin and being able to share those stories and hearing women having similar issues, or, I've spoken recently about, the change in THC for me, which has been incredibly difficult. And I did stay on my own. I didn't talk about it for a good while because I had to work it out. And there's not a lot of literature. There's not a lot available. But, when you start speaking and everyone's like, oh, my gosh, yeah, that's happening to me. Oh, my gosh, I'm noticing that.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most powerful things that you did when you whether you realized it or not, by creating the women's morning tea event, you created this space that was safe where all of us were hanging out. Don't get me wrong, there were some youngins in the class. It wasn't a class. There were some youngins in the crowd, but a lot of us are roughly around that same age, where some of us are getting into perimenopause. Some of us are on the other side in menopause. And you're absolutely right. Even I've noticed it. There's little shifts and changes happening in how I'm, I guess, receiving my plant now, if you will. And it's like you're saying, I'm in my head about it. I'm like, yeah, did that happen?
You're right. Yeah. To me, it is. It's part of my identity. And the conversation needs to continue around minor cannabinoids. It needs to continue around low dose. Like low dose for me is the best thing now. Like it knocks back the anxiety. It helps with pain. And again, sometimes I do need that higher THC. However, I know for myself personally to up my CBD dose with that. And that is, I think, the education pieces that we're missing from the healthcare professionals. And I do not blame them at all. They have 15 minutes to see you. They have, to work through everything. Plus, talking to you about your plant, they can't be on top of everything. And that's where you and I come in, and we have this special place right now in the space where we hold that in between for people, so that, between healthcare professionals and them understanding the plant, we support them in that space to educate them on, different cannabinoids, on how to support your endocannabinoid system without necessarily taking cannabis. There is, there's so much around the plant. Not like the $20 baggie. I always say that. Like, I used to pick up some $20 baggie and be like, yeah, that's weed. My goodness me, she is so beautifully complicated.
It's so true, though. It's so true, right? Like, but part of that comes with trial and error. Part of that comes with age and trying to figure out, what is working for you and what isn't working for you, and accepting when something isn't working for you instead of just forcing it to.
Or giving up. That's what worries me the most, is that people will give up. Or women coming to the plant for the first time, because I'll have a phone call from someone saying, the doctor gave me this, and this, but I actually can't remember. I don't know what to do. And they're overwhelmed. And so it's easier just to go back onto whatever else they were doing. And with the plant, you do need to revisit it a few times. Sometimes, it can take a few times to get your cultivar right. For someone like me, I'm really, my endocannabinoid system is really picky when it comes to the flower. So, I've had to realize that and learn that over time. And keeping a journal, I bang on about it, much to the fact that my friends like to, hang it on me. Here she comes, Miss Journaler. Yes, because if as a woman you're on a cycle, and if you can map your cannabis to your cycle, even over 2 months, I mean 3 if you were amazing at it, and then you can take that to your practitioner and go, listen up, buddy, at these points, this doesn't work for me. At this point, this is too much. What can we do here? It educates the doctor. And I think that it's great that we can do that. And then they may think about it for their next patient. But it really just gives you a map for yourself. So you don't think, oh my gosh, I'm going crazy. I've done this also for tea breaks. I've actually written a 21-day guide because I found that every time I'd take a tea break, I'd forgotten how I was going to feel. And so that way on day 3 or 4, I can look at my notes and go, oh, that's right. You're a crazy, sweaty mess by day 4. It's okay, right? So yeah, journaling is an important part of the piece. And to me, also knowing our own bodies, like we have been in this day and age, we hand our bodies over. Like, yeah, I'll do that. Don't know how it works. Don't know how anything happens, but sure, give me that. Whereas it's, we really need to look inward and go, what is working for me? And it doesn't, working for me with the plant, it doesn't mean, oh, I'm high. Working for the plant means, are those chattering voices in my head, are they, further away? Has the noise dimmed down? Is my left shoulder feeling better? And it may not be 100%, but just taking note of, where you may feel a little bit better.
No, I'm so with you because I say it all the time. I'm like, you're never going to know unless you write it down. You'll never be able to pick a pattern unless you write it down. So you have something to compare back to so you can pick up on all of those little subtle nuances. Because if you don't pick up on those subtle nuances, then you don't realize what is actually working for you and what isn't working for you. The other thing that's so important is you don't always have to go balls to the wall. Like sometimes less genuinely is best. Smaller doses.
Even if you're at a party on a weekend and a joint comes around, don't hit it every time it comes around. You don't need to. There is no pressure on anyone. And I'm saying this for myself more than anyone else. Because of this low THC now, I only need 1 puff, maybe 2 max. That's it. I mean, even at Nimbin, I think at one point there I'd had 2 puffs and thought, good Lord, of somebody else's strain that I have no idea what it was, right? I'm like, whew, that got me. And then, but I was in control at that point. Whereas if I had have just kept going, it would have been way too late and a green out may have occurred.
Yeah, it's knowing your limit and how to medicate within it.
And women are different. Our bodies are built differently. We're not men. The plant works differently for us. And so, I think the more we pay attention to that and the more knowledge we have, we can help our friends. We can pass it on to our daughters. There's so much in knowing our own bodies.
Oh, no, I totally agree. Let's talk about CannaCurious for a second. First of all, I love the name, right? Curiosity is just one of those things that feels less intimidating, right? It's more approachable when you're, like we've been saying, being curious, right? As opposed to expertise or knowing everything to a T. If you're curious, you can approach things more.
Yeah.
Do you think that education kind of works better when people feel like emotionally safe first?
100%. Like 100%. I think we need to feel safe in order to receive the information. And again, with women, I find with men, a lot of it is about getting high, or it's, I've been around these bros and it's all about who can have the highest THC. Whereas with women, it might be that there's something really personal behind it. It usually focuses around our reproductive system. And so they're quieter conversations that not everyone's ready to get up on stage and say they've got a dry vagina like me. Right? Otherwise, I'm out now, right?
Yeah, you're out now. You got to own it. For the listeners who don't know, the High on Hormones panel, yes, Kyla let that one out of the bag where she admitted that she had a dry vagina. But it was to a crowd of applause, which tells you you're not alone.
I'm not alone. And I think that most people would not want to do that. And I can understand why. So being able to have those quiet conversations, which is why I outed myself. If you need to have a quiet conversation, just get in touch. But, and also knowing about methods of consumption, which to you and I is a normal thing because we've been doing this for so many years, but it's not for everyone. So to take cannabis, you could also be just using a balm. That's it. You don't need to ingest. There are so many ways to get the benefits from this plant for women, and they require safe conversations.
I was just about to follow up with that question. And do you think shame stops people from asking basic
100%.
questions?
Shame causes us so much loss in knowledge. I've seen it through generations, and the way, women, unfortunately, as I've said, we're underserved in most markets because we're too hard. Our hormone, they're too hard. It's too hard. Our dosing for medication is based on men's physiology. That's still happening today. As I say it, I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird when you stop to think about it. It is. It's weird.
And so here we are again trying to put, a square peg into a round hole. And yeah, it can be confronting when you think about that. And so, yeah, for women to be able to share without feeling, and you shouldn't feel shame about anything. And once we have the conversation, that's what kills the shame. Having the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just got to own it sometimes. You just got to have that conversation because, like we're saying, if you put it out there, you will be surprised. There are other people going through the same things you're going through. You're not alone. You're never alone, ever.
No. And in this day and age of instant communication, you can always there are always groups online or, and again, reach out if you need any help. Christina and I are always happy to help. And finding those spaces and finding those places where you are encouraged to talk about it or you can listen to others, it really is amazing. And I think we need community. I've said this a few times too, but right now, more than ever, we need community. Going through the last few years as we all have, we need each other. We need to be physically present. And I think that's what Nimbin taught me too. The absolute joy and connection that you have when you are with your community.
I think community is very powerful. There is something magical when you're surrounded by like-minded people.
Yeah, really magical.
Yeah, but like in person, when you're actually standing in the same area, breathing the same air, it is. I will say that, I don't know, again, we can be very open here. It's hard doing this. Neither one of us are making money. We show up. We're doing this as a labor of love because we genuinely believe in the plant. We genuinely believe that we need to be having more conversations. There needs to be more education. There needs to be better access. We believe all of that, and it's why we keep showing up. But fuck, man, is it hard sometimes?
Oh, it's hard. And, you get deleted. You get the stigma is there. Not that I mean, it doesn't bother me, but there is so much that for us in this space, but we love it. And for me, it's the patient. Like, as I've said, one person just saying that they feel better or they understand how to access the medicine or whatever it is, that is why I'm here 7 years later, still doing the same thing and trying to get by, right? Because it is a labor of love. And when you're doing something you love, it certainly doesn't feel like work. That's for sure. It certainly doesn't.
It's true. But I do think that it's important to have things like this. So we're together and we connect and we're reminded why we got into this.
And collaboration, I just want to say too, I feel like, with the women we have around us, there is powerful collaboration. We all speak to a different audience, whatever it is that we're doing. But by coming together and finding common ground and then being able to share that, it benefits the patient. And I love that. It makes me so happy.
How do I want to phrase this? What kinds of leadership do you think are undervalued in this industry? Right? Because we're talking about community and grassroots space and how, we are extremely lucky to have this amazing, group of females around us that just genuinely support us, whether it's, Melanie Watzel, our fabulous cannabis queen, or, Jessica Paris over there in the green room hydro, yourself, me. There's lots of really powerful females in this space.
Yeah.
But what kind of leadership do you think is actually undervalued in this industry?
That's a good question. To me, it's having that history. It's that legacy market. I've come a long way in how I see this. I can remember times where I was resentful, absolutely resentful against the industry, the women in the industry, because it looked like there was a chase on the dollar, and there still is. And you know what? This is business. It's when you put a business lens on it, and that's what I found hard to do, coming from a space where there were women who were green fairies. How on earth do you think people got their medicine before 2016? It certainly wasn't through your GP, yet the plant remained underground, kept in many healers' cupboards because they have known the power of the plant for so long. So continuing with that history, and again, to me, it seems to cut off the patient and what the patient needs when we don't have that knowledge there, that history behind us, if people aren't curious at all. And there is so much to be learned from both markets. There's so much crossover, and that is powerful. But I also don't think that there is enough female leadership in this space. And I don't know whether that's because we're not being given the opportunity. I don't know what the answer is, but I would like to see a lot more of it, because women, we have been keepers of the plant for such a long time. We were the medicine makers. We were the growers. It's simple to me.
Yeah, the cannabis industry does feel very male dominated, and it does feel very transactional at times, right?
Yeah.
And I do think that some of the things that are missing is that community, that grassroots. I think, straight up, I think people underestimate how much invisible work goes into holding the community together.
That's a really good point, because you don't see it.
You don't see
the hours. Even, it was actually quite in my face during MardiGrass, looking at the legalized cannabis, men and women, and seeing how much of their own time, all of those people that I met, they've changed my mind about politicians, would you believe? Because, I've not ever really got much positive to say about a politician. However, listening to those guys and spending a weekend with them and hearing from their support staff, it is unbelievable how much time goes into that and how much time goes into community outreach that we don't see. And it's not 9 to 5.
Oh man, you you raise a really, really good point, Kyla, because I have intentionally kind of stayed away from having politicians on the show. I've leaned into patient stories. I've leaned into growers. I mean, yes, I've had some CEOs on because I want to talk about, why they got into it and what's unique about their farm, things like that. But again, I've intentionally stayed away from politicians because on some level, I'm like,
they're politicians.
Yeah. What's your agenda?
I was like, these people are all dreadful, and they're all got their own agendas.
Yeah, but I think part of that is because I do have the media background. So working in media back in North America, politicians only ever reach out to you when they want something, right? They want mic time. They want time to spread their gospel, whatever it is, right? But I will say that, watch this space. I'm going to have some polys coming on.
And what a change. But I wouldn't have that attitude if I hadn't spent some time with these people, and all of them have a powerful backstory. All of them are community led. And again, watching them, they volunteer so much time, these guys from Legalized Cannabis Party. And yeah, I was actually pretty blown away, and the way they all seem to work together too. They understand community and grass-led movements.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Had I not been curious, I probably would have bobbed and weaved away from them and tried not to, again, I don't want to say I would have avoided them, but again, I'm always like, oh, politicians, what do they want?
Yeah, but it's even, I think, for Nimbin, I think people bob and weave and don't want to go because, oh my God, it's a hippie town, or oh, it's hippie, it's this, it's that. If that's in your thoughts, yes, it is. It's one of the most historical towns. Obviously, so much has come out of there, and patients were served there for 30 odd years before, we got to medical cannabis. And they've done so much to bring that movement forward. And that's what Nimbin is. It is politically led. It is trying to make change for driving laws. They're trying to make change to how we access our plant. They're trying to ensure that we are allowed to grow from home. So there is a lot of that. But when you turn up in a normal year, and this year was a little bit different because there were quite a few speakers that cancelled, unfortunately, due to world events, which sucked because Sisters of the Valley were supposed to be coming. But that is the level of guest. There is always some amazingly extraordinary speakers that come along and that you get to sit in the town hall and listen to. And that is, it's so fabulous to see. And then you can go out and see the bong throwing competition for a bit of a laugh. There's something to do for everybody, but the learning that you can have in such a space is, it's phenomenal.
I completely agree with that. Because, yeah, it's hippie. It's hippie for sure. And there were times where I was like, oh, good Lord, baby, you need a shower or something.
I did hear that a few times. They're like, do people shower? Some people don't, but some people don't in the city as well,
It's true. It's true. It's so true now that you've said it. But I mean, on some level, there was a small part of me that kind of felt like I'd outgrown it. But at the same time, not the message, not what was trying to be achieved, right? They're still showing up. We're all still fighting the same fucked up stigmas, even though we know that beyond any type of reasonable doubt that this plant gives a quality of life to people that they didn't have before.
Yeah, and it's meeting those people, and as I said, hearing those stories and the storytelling that each and every person who comes to Nimbin is touched by the plant in some way, whether that be family, themselves, friends, or just curiosity, plain old, there's still a few young ones there that just get the bus up, I think, to see if they can score some weed. Each to their own, but because of the generations moving through and the age, there's people from 18 all the way to would have been 80s, 90s, I'd say. So the age range is quite large, and it just shows you how the plant really is for everybody.
Yeah. What do you think you've learned most from listening to people's stories directly?
Ooh, that's a big one. That they deserve to be listened to. Like, you know what? People are really sick out there. And over the last probably 5 or 6 years, I've seen that in some ways get worse. So to be able to tell their story and feel like they're not going mad, like I have seen some powerful healing that you just can't even imagine, that I would say was miraculous. I've seen people pass away. I've been to funerals. There's been so much over the years. But the joy that the plant gave them, and maybe even towards the end of life, if that was just being able to get some food down to spend time with their family as they exited this realm, like, I don't know, I'm very blessed with the amount of stories I have heard. And it does give me faith in humans, like it really does, that what we do for each other.
Yeah, I think I think for me personally, I look back on the conversations that I had with my dad towards the end, right? When he clued in that I was getting him high.
I love that conversation.
Right.
So cute, right?
But I look back on that and I'm like, would I have had the same conversations like if I hadn't been getting him high? Maybe, maybe not. But what I do know is in those moments, they were so fucking raw and real, and we were so connected, and I, I will fight till the day I die for other people to get those moments. And the more people I talk to, the more I realize life is a series of moments. And sometimes you got to fight really hard for the meaningful ones.
Yeah, I think that is very, very true. And in today's day and age, it's so easy to get lost, right?
Yeah, I think people don't need fucking better access to cannabis. They need better access to feeling understood.
Yeah. Yeah, to feeling understood and like there is a space for them and yeah, that connection, particularly, unfortunately during illness, it can be during illness. It usually is with the plant. We've got illness. And to feel heard, seen, and kind of normal. Like I went to a family the other week. Someone asked me to go and visit them because their 19-year-old was dying of cancer. And she rang me and said, listen, this is going to be heavy and hard. And I'm like, I'll be right. So I literally just zip in there, was perfectly myself and didn't worry. And I ended up having the most magical moments with that family, like magical. They just needed a bit of education, a bit of direction. And I was privileged enough to be asked into their home while this was happening and to see the interplay between the family. And just for that moment that we were there, we forgot about the cancer. We laughed about 19-year-olds getting high and going to their doctor as their dealer. And, we had some really funny conversations. And I didn't at all feel like that was heavy or heartbreaking. I've had to learn that. I'm not going to lie. I've had to learn that. I've had to learn to not get involved because when I first started in the plant, you would have seen me running around everywhere all weekend trying to get people help or a balm or whatever it is that they needed because it felt so urgent to me when people, have cancer.
What gives you hope right now?
Community, 100%. There is, I can answer that so with such conviction because 7 years ago, Christina, I didn't have you or Paul or Mel or Jess or anyone. It was me for years, me in a silo, me feeling like I couldn't talk because I was being deleted off social media and looked at terribly. And it was a time there we were all locked up. And so it was tough. It was really, really tough being on my own. And now being able to reach out when I've got a question or if I'm having a shitty day, and I love the way people also do that to me. They just ring up and go, you know what, don't need you to solve anything. Can you just listen to this for a minute? It's just magic, and that we're all pushing for the same thing in different directions. So looking at the it just gives me hope that so many more women in particular are going to have an understanding of what the plant can do. Yeah, and access. So it's community, absolute community.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. Like, so true. A few years ago, I mean, now I have an entirely different friend base, an entirely different set of cheerleaders than what I had a few years ago. And I say cheerleaders because, damn, y'all really are some cheerleaders, right?
I love that. Well, that's a great way to put it. Yes.
Yeah, like when I get down, somebody in the community does. They pick up the phone, they send a text, they call, it's.
We notice when we go quiet now, aren't we? Or we're missed. People are like, oh, hang on, she's been on social media for a few days. What's wrong? Are you okay over there?
But it's so great in the sense that, community, we're coming together. And like you're saying, we're all fighting for the same thing, just walking slightly different paths to make it happen.
And women in particular, I'm not going to lie, I found relationships with women difficult. I have seemed to have put myself in a place where the competition is high and I just don't play that game. I'm not very good at it. I don't understand why we can't all be nice to each other and disagree as well. Like, we can disagree, and we all do disagree at times, and yet it feels safe. And I love watching you. Nothing makes me happier than watching you girls have a win. Like, seriously, it literally just lights me up. And to be now surrounded by that it's life-changing.
It is. When you find your tribe, it really is. Parting question for you. Of course, it's been fabulous talking to you, Kyla. I've loved every minute of it. What do you hope women walking into the cannabis space in the future feel that maybe they don't feel today?
Welcome and safe and celebrated. That's it. To me, it's so, so simple, but we are dealing with many, many different humans. But honestly, we are headed in that direction. And if you want in, get in touch, just talk to us. Like, we're regular people and we are here to help. Like, that's what I love. Like, any of us will take that time out. So if you're in the community and you want in, we do a picnic in Brisbane and in Sydney. There's a Puff Puff Pass picnic. We are organising women's morning tea again next year at MardiGrass. So please pop that in your calendars, and there will be more that comes from this. And if you're holding an event that we don't know about, let us know so we can get it out to people. Like, absolutely.
Yeah, girl. You'll love it. If you've got an event, let us know. We'll shamelessly promote it.
We love promoting your Canna events or competitions or, whatever it is. Like, let's get the word out there. Like, this is how we do it.
It is. For the listeners who don't know where you are, Kyla, quick shout outs for your socials.
Ooh, CannaCuriousAus. So I'm CannaCurious, AUS at the end on Instagram. CannaCurious, I think, AU on TikTok. But so many times I've been deleted. You know how many letters are on the end of CannaCurious? But just reach out. Absolutely. Send me a DM. I'm always happy to help.
All of that contact information will absolutely be in the show notes. Oh, Kyla, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for, joining me today. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of the women's tea at the Nimbin MardiGrass.
I'm so glad that you came, babe. Like, honestly, like, it was absolutely brilliant. And thank you for having me today. I always enjoy this conversation. We love a chat.
We do. We always chit chat. We always have good chit chats. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the AusCannaPodcast. I want to take a moment to thank Kyla, not just for this conversation, but for the work she's doing behind the scenes to create spaces where people feel comfortable enough to show up honestly. The women's morning tea during Mardi Gras was a reminder that cannabis culture isn't only built through policy or products. It's built through conversations, through community, through people creating spaces where others feel safe enough to ask questions, share stories, and feel less alone. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who might genuinely get something from it, or leave a review so more people can discover the show. It really helps support independent conversations like this and keeps the podcast growing. If you'd like to support the show directly, you can do that at buymeacoffee.com/AusCannaPodcast. Until we meet again, friends, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. And remember, Malcolm X once said, "When I is replaced with we, even illness becomes wellness."